Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here at Tim's Nation to bring you my list preview for tonight's matchup versus Lane and his DeathWatch. This weekend, Lane will be traveling to Cincinnati to play at Keg Bash, and he wanted some Necron practice. First, I thought N.O.P.E Court, because I love that detachment. Hypercrypt, it's very popular, but instead, last week, I was able to play for the first time the
Obeisance
Phalanx. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a lot of the things about it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to tweak this a bit. We're going to give it a second try. It's going to be going into Lane's DevWatch list that he'll be bringing this weekend, but he'll still get a little bit of refresher on all the crazy Necron stuff, especially since one thing that I'm bringing is a very popular unit in a lot of Necron armies, and that is a bunch of Immortals. So with this list, after the game against Brian and his Tyranids, it was a close game. It was a very close game. An Overwatch, some crazy Overwatches, but Brian's Overwatch in the end was what sealed the victory because it was not able to do capture enemy outposts, which gave him the win. So after seeing that, I was like, okay, there's something here. So let's make a couple of tweaks and twist some stuff around and make it happen. Now, out of all the units that received buffs from this detachment, there's one unit that I didn't play. And this week, I still will not be playing that unit. I want to just throw that out there on a why. And that is the Triarch Praetorians. Triarch Praetorians are just in a very difficult spot. They cost way too much for what they do. No invulns, 2-up save, just the overall expense of it. And with Lane prepping for a tournament, I didn't want to even just throw them out and try. I understand there might be some aspects because there's not a lot of jump infantry per se in Necrons. We don't have access to that. So this unit that has fly and a larger move and can reroll failed charges as its inherent ability could have some other technical play, but I can't get by how much they cost. When you start to look at units like the Triarch Praetorians and the fact that they deep strike, they have a role. If you take them as a 10-man, a big brick, you're pretty much expecting them to do damage or survive and have this extra stuff. And I feel like they lack a lot of the pieces that really make them survive. You know, they can't have a character join them, so they don't get some of the cool character buffs, and they just kind of fall into their own data sheet. Then if you take them smaller and take them as 5-mans and to finish off the 10-mans, they do damage. You know, the particle caster that they have, their pistol, is decent. But then when you start looking at other units that can take that same weapon, they're cheaper with more abilities, such as Tomb Blades, which can scout. They're cheaper, and you can take, they can shoot and scoot. They're faster even. So there's a lot to be said there. And then when you look at the smaller unit and say, okay, take a 5-man, now you're looking at the fact that a squad of one 5-man squad of Praetorians costs so much that there's so many other things that you can get to play the missions and have as those units, that the Praetorians fall into that middle ground where it's like they're not cheap enough to do the cheap unit things, and they're not strong enough to do the expensive unit things. So it's like they're at a really weird point. However, with that being said, we did push for some more Triarch as I went out and got another Triarch Stalker, built it, and getting him painted up. So I'm not sure. At the point of recording this video, he is primed. So I'm going to try and get some paint on him. If when this comes out, he's still just black, he is at least primed. But we're working on getting them ready. My Plasmancer, getting the gray off the table, trying to get some of that off there and get these models at least visually ready, while Lane and I have been discussing with my Necrons doing a different basing scheme. All right, enough gabbing from me. Let's go over and talk about the list and what we got going on today. All right, here it is. This is my Necrons
Obeisance
Phalanx Enclave. And there's a reason I call it that. This is the N.O.P.E list. So, what do we got going on today? Well, we have a bunch of Immortals and a bunch of characters. I reduced it down from last time, but we still have a bunch. So I'm not going to go over the characters individually. Instead, I'm going to go over them with each one of their units. So let's start off with the Triarch Stalkers. So we have 2 Triarch Stalkers in this list. These guys will have heat rays. I do kind of lack tank weaponry answers and stuff like that. I know having 2 of them means that they're going to draw a lot of attention. They have a 4-up invuln, so they got a little bit of protection from that. And they have a scout move, so they can get into probably some more defensive positions. This is one time where I really think I need the heat ray. It is a melt-a weapon, and if my opponent does not answer the Triarch Stalker in a reasonable time frame, and I can move this thing into melt-a range, that is significantly more damage that he can put out there. On top of that, they also can knock away cover from a unit that gets shot at. So even if I'm not able to get into melt-a range or not even able to shoot a vehicle or monster target or a high wound target, I can still use that to knock off cover. Also, the heat ray doubles as a flamer torrent weapon at 2d6 shots, which auto hit. Hey, we knock away cover and can do some infantry damage. So it's not like infantry can just pour in and bog this thing down and get in its way with having that heat ray. When I run 1, I like to use the particle beamer, I believe it is called for this thing. Just so that I guarantee those hits. But since I have 2 of them and I don't have a lot of anti-tank, we're running the heat rays today. Also, we have our buddy in the vehicle column. We have the Convergence of Dominion. Now, with these guys, you can take a solo Convergence of Dominion. And that's what I will be doing. I'm going to take this one so that I still have the fixed objective option and can have something that can hang out at home and do engage on all fronts for my home objective, if I decide to go that route. But more importantly, this is just for the early game. This guy gives a 6-up Feel No Pain to Necron units, and that's going to be helpful to keep my Immortals alive and slow down some of the damage. Since I have a lot of ways to be able to bring a squad back up to full, I almost basically have a second life for each one of these squads of Immortals, and the Convergence is going to assist, so at least I have the 6-up Feel No Pain to try and shrug things off. Last in the vehicle column, we have the Canoptic Reanimator. So Reanimator's range got reduced significantly, which pulled him out of the auto-include in most lists. I don't think he's trash. I never have thought he was trash. He just has not fit into the list that I've been building. With the Immortals being single wound and how their reanimation triggers, having him to be able to accelerate getting Immortals back into units, I think will really, really help in this list, and we're going to give him a try and see if he can work out with that today. Not to mention, he can help with some secondaries by being able to perform actions while other units need to shoot or do other things in this list. Okay, we have a squad of Tomb Blades. So I took 3 Tomb Blades, 2 particle beamers, and the Tesla. So this unit can scout. They move very fast. They can shoot and then move another time based on their inherent ability, because now that's changed from what it used to be of -1 to hit. Now they have shoot and move. But they could also advance and still complete actions because we have that 1 assault weapon. That's what these guys' jobs are. This squad, its entire job is just to make sure that we be able to keep playing the secondaries, pushing on secondary objectives, and score more points that way. Next up, we have the Flayed Ones. Flayed Ones have Infiltrate. Flayed Ones have Stealth. So Flayed Ones are a little bit tougher to take down with the -1 to hit, but mostly it's for that Infiltrate. These guys, I can put them out there and get onto an objective to start doing things like cleanse, because again, this list I'm looking at doing more fixed objectives for, and having a unit that can already start the game in position to start cleansing an objective is really, really, really helpful. And I think is going to be super necessary for me overall getting, being able to score more on secondaries. The one thing with fixed objectives is you are reducing how many points you can score each turn based on how many of these objectives you can do, how much, like engage on all fronts, you don't get the bonus because you're drawing it. Same with cleanse. Cleanse, you get 2 points for doing 1 objective, and you get 4 points if you get 2 objectives. So having these guys be able to hit 1 objective and score 2 points all game long Could it be an easy 10 points? Another secondary easy 10 points. So now it's a matter of just trying to push that needle a little bit further to get extra points from engage on all fronts, cleanse, or deploy teleport homers. I have not decided, but I do have options around those three secondaries. Blade ones and the Tomb Blades are what are going to really help to make those things happen so that my Immortals can keep doing what they're doing. All right, over into the attack front, let's talk about Xeris first. So Xeris is making his return in this list. Xeris has the ability to give Armor of Contempt, -1 to AP of incoming shots, to battle line units within 3 inches of him. He also gives them +1 AP to their guns within 3 inches of them, or actually +1 AP to their attacks. So as well in combat, these Immortals suddenly could have AP1 on the charge if they're within 3 of Xeris. Now, if Xeris kills a unit in combat, he gets an additional 3 inches to that range of this ability. I'm sorry, kills a model. That doesn't stack with the turn. It says as long as he eliminates 1 model in combat, then he gets +3 to the range. Not super likely, but in aggressive lists, if someone gets up close, just being able to have Xeris charge in, eliminate a unit, now boost that to 6 inches, do it again, boost it to 9 inches, and especially if it's an ongoing combat and I can end it during my opponent's turn, that 9-inch range would be immensely, immensely helpful. Needless to say, the big part is Armor of Contempt on Immortals, as well as increasing the AP on their weapons, is what really helps to be able to push the Immortals into a stronger damage column. All right, before we get over to the Immortals, let's talk about the Lich Guard, because I know I didn't take Triarchs, but I had to take Lich Guard. So I got a 10-man squad of Lich Guard with shields and swords, sort of. The Lich Guard, so we can spend a command point to make these guys precision. For the most part, these guys are just going to be a big, bulky, center-holding unit. Even though they can't take a Technomancer and have Feel No Pain or Crypt Thralls with them, they are still tough to take down. We have an Overlord with them who is going to have a Resurrection Orb. This is a standard foot Overlord. And the reason that I chose to take a foot Overlord for this instead of a Translocation one is the extra damage that you can get out of an Overlord. The Overlords have multiple different weapon options, depending on how you kit them out. And one of the weapon options, being the Void Blade, gives me a Strength 12, 3 damage attack. So that could be really helpful in helping to get the Lich Guard out of some of the combats with multi-wound units, since that's one area where they kind of struggle. If you get them with multi-wound models, the 1 damage, it gets kind of rough. So that'll help out there. I can target him with a battle tactic, stratagem, and zero it out off of him. Not too many that I would really want to do for them. That comes into play more with the Immortals. But these guys are tough. These guys are tough cookies. They can move up there. And once again, with some of my other secondaries that require actions, if these guys aren't doing anything, they can do an action. Cleansing or deploy teleport homers, or start pushing across the field to try to get those extra points for engage, just on how tough they can be. All right, I've talked about them enough times. Now let's talk about them in the list. We have 3 squads of Immortals, and these guys, I kit them out to the teeth. Everything, they are fully loaded. So with the 3 squads of Immortals, 2 of which have Tesla, 1 has Gauze blasters. So we'll talk about the 2 with Tesla first, because these guys are pretty much identical. So all 3 of the squads are going to come with Crypt Thralls, a Cryptek, and an Overlord. The 2 Tesla squads will have a Overlord with Translocation Beamer, or Translocation Orb. So these guys are going to be able to auto-advance 6 inches. The Tesla is assault weapons, so they can still shoot those. And then there will be a Chronomancer, giving the unit -1 to hit them, as well as being able to shoot and then move after which they shoot. This gives these 2 units a lot of mobility to get across the field, to get into better positions, or to get out of bad positions, to get behind a wall, to hide, all these different things. I have really enjoyed this unit a lot this edition. Yes, they were very powerful at a Canoptic Court with the devastating wounds. I will still run these guys probably in Canoptic Court even without the dev wounds, just because of how fun the unit is and how much versatility this unit brings. Again, that is a unit that can really soar across the field with an auto advance 6, shoot, and then move and get onto an objective, get behind a wall, or move block. Now, they all have crypt thralls, as I said. So the crypt thralls will give them the additional wounds to be able to sink into it before I have to pull immortals. We do have a resurrection orb, so we can bring the immortals back. So I have a lot better of chances of keeping the immortals alive in the unit, so I can do damage off the immortals. Not as worried about the crypt thralls damage. Those guys will just help me soak up the wounds. And then the squad with the Gauze Blasters. So Gauze Blasters are 2 shots with lethal, where the Tesla is sustained 2 for a lot of high volume shots. The Gauze Blasters are lethal 2. They are strength 5, AP 1, 1 damage. Xeris can get these guys up to AP 2. So now, combined with lethal, these guys can do a good amount of damage. The Overlord that's leading them is a Foot Overlord. Mostly because I don't really want to advance these guys because of assault weapons. So I figure we'll go again and here have the guy who can hit a little bit harder. He does have a resurrection orb. And now their crypt tech is going to be the Plasmancer to give them a 5-up crit when they go and shoot their lethal weapon Gauze Blasters. As for enhancements, which we didn't mention this, the Lich Guard, their Overlord has the enhancement to give these guys -1 to hit in combat. Okay, cool. A little bit more defense. Want to try and keep these guys in combat to bog someone down. That's the idea. For this squad with the Gauze Blasters, we're going to have full rerolls to hit shooting at a unit on objective. Now, Immortals inherently have the ability to reroll all to wound rolls against units that they're shooting at that are on an objective. That's cool. Or shooting, even in combat, whenever the unit makes an attack. So you can do it in combat as well. Now, with the Gauze Blaster, we reroll the wounds, but we also reroll the hits so we can fish for lethal hits. Strength 5, again, AP 2. Even though it's only 1 damage, we can do a bit of damage off these guys to really put something down, even some bigger targets just because of the lethal hits. Plasmancer also dishes out mortal wounds. He's pretty cool. I enjoyed him last game. Looking forward to running him again. And now when we talk about that crit 5-up that the Plasma Lancer gives, this detachment also has a strat for 1 command point that gives target unit 5-up to crit. Well, that doesn't only just give them 5-up to crit, it is a battle tactic. So on top of it, not only are we going to be critting on 5-ups for the unit with the Plasmancer, we can then spend 1 command point and give one of the units of mortals with sustained hits 5-ups to crit. And because of the Overlord's abilities, we can then do it again for free on another unit. So basically, all 3 of my Immortal squads, if they wanted, could all just shoot with crit 5-ups pretty much the entire game. Now, it is battle tactics, so it gets weakened by some abilities to be able to stop it. And I know Lane does have a Calidus, so I'll have to watch for that. But still, that's some pretty good damage output. All that extra sustained, all the reroll wounds on units and on objective markers, etc., etc., etc. That's going to be the big bulk of core of this army, running on these guys, these 30 Immortals in total, and we'll see how this does. Now, as I said, the Necron
Obeisance
Phalanx Enclave, or N.O.P.E. Yeah, that's where we're going with it today. It seems a bit slow. There's not as much speed with this, nor access to speed. You can put other units in that are fast, Ophidian Destroyers and stuff like that, to be able to do the secondaries, but they don't play off the detachment as well. I went with the flayed ones over the Ophidians. The only thing really was just points. I originally in the list, when I was doing that construction, I did have the Ophidians in there to be able to pick up, put down, and continue engage and do all this other stuff. But I wanted to I wanted to try out the Reanimator with the Immortals, so I made some tweaks and dropped the Ophidians initially. And that's really about it. I do want to play on fixed for this. I don't need a lot of CP to run this list. Like, I need one command point to activate the reroll, the 5-up crit strat, and that's really about it. So I don't need to discard or have the discard step to gain extra command points with this list particularly. I just need to have that one command point. Granted, Lane can vex my stratagem because it's a battle tactic, but we can still do it for free off of the other characters, off the other units. It's just 2 CP. It gets messy, but we'll live. We'll live. So I need to decide when we get the game set up and we start to play it, what secondaries I want to do. Right now, there are 3 secondaries I'm leaning to. One is engage on all fronts. Although I dropped down to 1 convergence of Dominion, where before I had 2, so I could at least put those in my deployment zone type areas to be able to control those for engage on all fronts. Now I only have 1, but I have 3 units that can scout, 1 that can infiltrate. I have units that can spread out and move and cover the field. So a little bit, it's like taking from this basket, filling this basket. Okay, we're cool there. So we can still do engage. It's only 2 points for holding those 3. So I'd have to get to my opponent's deployment zone, that other table quarter. That's going to be more difficult to get the more points on it. Now, with the other 2 secondaries, cleanse and deploy teleport homers presents the same problem. I need to get into my opponent's deployment zone to be able to do that. Now, with that, I do have things like the Tomb Blades or the Flayed ones that can make a push for that. But if I get the Tomb Blades in my opponent's deployment zone, chances are that's a one and done hit, and then they're going to be gone. So it is still questionable if I want to go that route, because a lot of my other units, it's not going to be as easy to push. So we're still kind of in that same column of either way, if I get into my opponent's deployment zone, I don't have much staying power in my opponent's deployment zone. So that's rough. But Tomb Blades, small, I can hide them. They have reanimation, so if my opponent can't completely eliminate them, I can start bringing them back. So there might be some play with deploy teleport homers to go, okay, here, boom, that's at least a hit. I don't really want to send the flayed ones over there, because as long as the flayed ones can stay on a more defensive objective, they can continue to just cleanse, and every turn that's going to be 2 points, where then I can move to the center with something like the Canoptic Reanimator or the Lich Guard, not doing as much, not pushing, and they can cleanse the center as we go across the board. Now, another big factor that's in my mind that I didn't think about till after I started playing against Brian, and this also plays into some of these secondaries, is as specifically engage on all fronts, is once the unit gets eliminated, now you have 2 characters that what are they going to do? One character could go to my home objective to be able to control that for, just to be able to have the extra points if it matters for primary, as well as just to, for engage on all front purposes and stuff like that. But I can also push those characters forward to snag engage on all fronts of my opponent's zone. I'm going to lose those characters most likely, but now I can at least go, okay, here we go. Here's the unit. Bring in the Tomb Blades. Here's a unit. And the same for deploy teleport homers. So that's one thing that I'm considering as well with this is once Immortals go down, I can have these characters to be able to do this stuff with. And that's going to come with more time and practice. I may not make the right call when I go into it today and pick the right secondary, but after time and practice and seeing like when the characters start to become freed up, when this stuff happens, how we can push forward and how we can move forward. Building this list, building this army, and using this detachment, the one thing I feel is I constantly feel myself wanting to go back over into Hypercrypt or Canoptic Court, because I do really like the Immortals. I like how they bounce around the field and how they play. And being able to do some tricks with the Immortals and the Chronomancers and drop in and move or just bounce around the field is stuff that I really want to do. However, after playing last week with Brian and messing around with this and having this big Immortal brick, my heart is kind of I'm starting to gain a more, I'm losing the phrase of how you call it, a acquired taste. I feel like the
Obeisance
Phalanx is an acquired taste. And as you start to play it more, you start to really enjoy it. You feel the fact of you have all these overlords, and it's almost like you're building just this like hunting party of overlords, and they're going out there with their immortals and all their stuff, and it's just it really is cool. It's actually a really fun detachment. I recommend anybody who's playing Necrons and learning it, and you might be playing Awakened Dynasty. This is definitely a detachment that's a lot of fun to play. It's acquired taste. Like as you play it more and more, you find yourself like I had no interest in getting another Triarch Stalker yet for this army, and then after that, I just really was like, I feel like I will end up playing another one, a second one eventually. I should have a second one, so I got one, got it built up to bring for this game, this video for the channel. But on top of it too, it's just something I needed to add to my collection, and I didn't mind because I feel like the Triarch Stalker is really starting to make an impact in different Necron armies, and it's you run it, you don't run it, you like it, you don't like it. It's still at least a conversation piece when you talk about competitive Necrons. So, all right, I've rambled on enough. I got some painting to do. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.